Good evening, everybody. How are we doing?
Good evening, Mike.
Hello.
Nice to have you here with us, Simon. Welcome to the 101 Show.
Thank you for having me.
That's all right. It must be nice. Well, we'll get onto it in a little bit in terms of what you do outside of, well, obviously this now, but being the other side of the mic, as it were. So how does it feel?
It's pretty weird. I mean, it was a big surprise to be asked to come on. And yeah, to change roles from being the interviewer to the interviewee is, it's a bit different. And sorry, it's not Simon Webb from Blue, but Simon Webb from Cambridge City. But I'll do my best.
No, I definitely, Simon Webb from Blue isn't going to really know much about hockey. Well, he may do. You never know. But, not going to have the hockey stories that we want to chat about. So, no, thank you so much for your time and for being with us.
That's all right. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Simon Webb from Red, I would say. Cambridge City, red colours, bleed red. This is super exciting, Si, because obviously you've interviewed me a few times after matches for Pro League stuff, but actually our friendship goes back a long time to when I first joined Cambridge City. So that was when I must have been 15, joining the ladies ones, and fond memories of you photographing our games and capturing the moments, particularly the one against Wimbledon, which has been reposted probably like 10 times. The picture of me with Krista Cullen. And just so viewers know, I did get her autograph straight after the game. But Si, you are a legend of Cambridge City. And for viewers out there, Si runs Talk Hockey podcast. He co-founds and he works with Decathlon Hockey, Corrock Hockey, and he's become a bit of a big name on Instagram, I would say. He's got a huge following, likes to tag lots of big names as well. But Si, what's your role in Cambridge City, do you think?
Ooh, that's a question. My main thing I try to do is to make sure that everyone can enjoy and love the club as much as I do. I've done a variety of different roles. I've coached or assistant coached or managed most teams in the club. I've played for all the men's teams at least once. But yeah, it's really
at least once. What does that mean?
At least once. I was going to say that's really nice.
I have played for the first team. I was on for very little time. I don't think I touched the ball. I was terrified. I nearly ended up in goal for a friendly when we were in National League. That was very scary, but thankfully James Fair agreed to step in from Cannock and cover me. We just couldn't get a goalkeeper for a friendly. So that would have been a horrendous experience. I think it would have been my fourth or fifth game ever in goal would have been against Cannock first team. But yeah, I do a variety of different things, but the main thing recently has really been social media. And I've been really well supported by Kim Butler and Stuart Rye as well in producing content. We've got a nice little fleet of photographers, so we can get plenty of content out there and try and keep people connected and close together during this fairly odd time.
I must say, the Cambridge City Instagram is probably the best one out there of all hockey clubs. I mean, in terms of promptness of posts and wittiness of posts, I would say you must be at the top. And so I run the EG ladies hockey Instagram, and I just try to take inspiration from you with all the banter that's going on. But I struggle to be so consistent. What made you want to do the Instagram?
Funny, so a guy called Mike first started off for Twitter, and I agreed to help out with that quite early on. So that's been going on for about 11 years. And with Twitter, we won an award for best marketing from England Hockey, and my objective with it was to talk about hockey as little as possible. And just post the results, but basically sort of take the mickey out of Helen whenever we could, through her connection with Andy, who's our chairman, and really just try and be a bit fun and show a bit of personality. And then all the cool kids were on Instagram, and it seemed like we should probably try and have something on there ourselves. I didn't know much about it at all at the start. It was just we needed to really have a presence on there. And to try and be there for our younger audience, and it's sort of grown from there. So yeah, it's been going for a few years now and quite enjoying it.
Cambridge City going to go over to TikTok? Is that?
It's been talked about, but I don't understand TikTok. It's beyond me, unfortunately.
I don't understand it.
I am 35, despite all the incredible volume of grey hairs I've got. It's a bit beyond me, that one.
Yeah,
I must say Instagram is interesting as a platform for growing hockey. And I think to engage with the younger audiences, but also to make it more of a social event. You look at football and rugby, and they are huge on their Twitter, and netball. Netball is huge on Instagram, and you setting an example of how clubs should operate is really inspiring. And do you think that the social media as a whole needs to be grasped, particularly by England hockey and GB hockey?
I think there's some bits which are done really well, and it really helps that we've got genuinely interesting, charismatic people in England and Great Britain hockey. So with the Cambridge City one, I try as much as I can to celebrate the people in the club, because that's what we are. It's the people. And I'm so excited to see the men's or women's first teams play, just as much as I am to see people down in the 6th or 7th team play. And watching someone like Stuart Perry, who I'm not going to guess his age, he'll probably kill me, but to see these guys still battling out is amazing. And then when you look at Great Britain and England, definitely, particularly with them on furlough, it's difficult, and they're doing their best. But we've got some fantastic people like Maddie Hinch and Anna Toman and Holly, and there was so many on the women's side. On the bloke side, I think Brendan and Phil did a great job with their podcast. There's some incredibly skillful players who are really exciting, but to me, the real way that we can connect as a sport is through the people and through the stories of the people playing our sport. And I think GB and England have a real opportunity on that front, because we've got just some exceptional people that we can really celebrate.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned Brendan there. I think, what a bloke. He's just, and, Ropes as well, really great guys. And I think I love Brendan's take on hockey. I think he's always really honest in the way he talks about it. And it also really, deliberate in the way he thinks. And I love, and like you say, I think we've got these amazing thinkers. I think we're fortunate. Tess is one of those who really thinks about the game as well. To have something like that on the show, I think is amazing. But I think we need to, like you're saying, GB and England hockey have got an opportunity to really showcase that. I think Hockey Wales are actually trying, have really stepped up over the last 12 months from what they're doing on their social media stuff as well. There's been a real step change from 18 months ago to now in terms of what they're putting out. And I think actually they're setting a really good stall out on what they're doing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people doing some really interesting content. There was an interesting post by Self Pass the other day, which I found stimulating, which was that they stuck up the number of followers that the top 3 women's players have, and then they had the top 3 men's the next day, and it was a fraction of the women. And I was talking to Nikki Simmons the other day, who used to be the FIH media officer, about this, and we have this issue. It's got all the media friendly, all the ones who really capture the imagination in hockey generally seem to be women. If I think back about the standout players who really sort of capture the imagination, they are women for the most part. And yet we see that there's a massive disparity in terms of prioritization of women in hockey. And if you go to club level, the pay, the resources, the support isn't the same. And yet when you look at the top end of the game, the big stars, generally speaking, the women. So I found that a really interesting one. I think Self Pass have done a lot of really good work. One or two things wasn't such a big fan of with some of the inflated posts they did. But for the most part, they do some great stuff. And I think Scored are trying to push things forward. They did some really nice stuff at the European Championships about sort of getting athletes and presenting the athletes as people. So yeah, I think it's moving forward. And yeah, we just need to do a bit more outreach maybe and be a bit more clever and wise about the tagging and stuff, and present stuff that's different. So Ombra from Belgium and Reece Smith from Great Britain, they're presenting stuff that's different and not the traditional content. So like Ombra's the most ridiculous dancer I think I've ever seen. So no disrespect intended, Tess. And then like with Reese, you know, he like the use of the music and the sort of the content he's produced, and Tess is now doing this as well a little bit. That's a big thing we need to do as a sport, is become much more accessible, and I think people like that are making it happen, thankfully.
Yeah, and I think on that, I think Self Pass kind of paved the way years and years and years ago, and I think they kind of launched so far ahead of everybody else in terms of trying to make it accessible. And you know, I know Bernardo well, and you know, he's really tried to push things forward, and he's always trying to be an innovator. And yeah, okay, some things people don't like what he does, and you know, that's been well documented. But I think at the same time, I think it's now he's almost put the yardstick out there and almost put it to anybody else. Come and join me, like, let's go. And I think, yeah, there's just a huge, people need to be innovative. And I think Reese is doing some amazing stuff in a number of different ways with his, you know, his stuff in the community, and he's just, his personality, like, he's just amazing. Having seen him from being an under 18, now going all the way through to where he is now, like, yeah, it's unbelievable. Before we go any further, we have actually missed a bit of a fairly obvious omission from this evening's lineup, in terms of Mr. Andrew Gibson can't join us tonight.
Oh my gosh, we forgot to even mention.
And the reason that I'm bringing this up now is because Ian, a long-time listener, has said, did the local hairdresser kidnap Gibbo? So Gibbo can't join us because he is preoccupied with another arrangement. So sorry, Gibbo, if you're watching this back. We do still love
Sorry,
you.
we miss you, Gibbo.
We do. Honestly, we do miss you. So just, again, Ian's just kind of also said about Scored TV to bring some live game streaming to clubs to make it more accessible. And I think, having seen clubs in the UK start to do it a little bit more, I think Beeston, obviously with BTV, like, again, it's so, I think when people actually look into the mechanics that are needed to do live streaming of games, it's not that much. Like, yes, there's a little bit of cost and like a little bit of manpower and everything else, but actually you're not talking tens of thousands of pounds to get the thing set up. So I think more clubs need to take that kind of initiative, and I think not at all levels, I'd say all national leagues could actually quite comfortably do that. And I think that's huge. I mean, when you've been all over the world with your photography, which is definitely something I want to talk about in a second. Like, how have you, where do you think are kind of the next steps for the clubs in Great Britain to kind of get a little bit closer to kind of Holland, Belgium, from a, not just a playing perspective and on all that side, but from it being run as a business per se?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because they definitely benefit from the fact it's a smaller country, so it's easy for people to jump from the office to doing something commitment-wise on hockey as well, because it's 15 minutes down the road. When I speak to my mates over there, they find it astonishing that in the bottom division we might travel an hour and a half for an away match, because you can cover the breadth of Belgium in about an hour. So they find that really weird. But I think whilst that might be an obstacle, there's a lot of stuff we can do as clubs to try and progress it. So before I had kids, I would be sort of nagging people to come and watch first team matches for both the men and the women, and my Facebook status would pretty consistently be on a Friday or a Saturday, this is the match taking place, this is who it's against, and this is why you should come. And sometimes it was really jokey stuff about sort of seeing Keir Dixon, the happiest man on the planet, or it was about seeing, you know, incredible talent like Ewan Gilmore, who's just got the fastest hands you could imagine. And with the women, obviously Helen was a big draw for us. But also you have to focus on the fact you've got some amazing talent as well. Like there's a lady called Lisa, who's just an incredibly intelligent mover up front. People like Stan. And as clubs and as the people in those clubs, we need to be proud and not embarrassed about saying to people, this is really good. Come and watch it. Have a beer, stand at the side of the pitch, have a chat, have some banter. And that I think it's just an easy little thing we can do. It's just sort of drag people along. Putting matches potentially on a Friday night when it's convenient to do so. So like at Cambridge, if we had Peterborough, one of the sort of more local National League teams, then we should try and do it on a Friday night. That's something that I'm trying to bring up to the committee now. And it's just creating that atmosphere. And like when we would play against Holcombe back when the men were in the same division as us, they would put it on as the absolute last fixture. Everybody would be there. So we played when the women were on before us. So they had like Maddie was on, Lily Owsley was on, Sam Quett, Laura Unsworth. And then the next match was Barry Middleton, Nick Catlin, Ian Lewis, Jordan. Yeah. And you put the first teams at the end of the day. If you can't do it on a Friday, put it at the end of the day on a Saturday, so everyone can come back from their away matches and stick about and watch that. Little things like that would really help.
And I think just on that, it's not just your National League guys. So I'm involved in Marlow. We've got aspirations for National League. The thing I absolutely adore about the club is that there is so many people coming to watch every game. So we will regularly have really, really good numbers, more so than I've seen at some National League games, because everybody just turns up and they spend the entire day at the club, you know. And this year, similar thing. I said, right, I want the men to be a 3 o'clock pushback. So the men are, 3 o'clock pushback. Everybody wants to, kick around and watch games later in the day. People generally like come to watch us. Some don't, but is what it is. But actually, that's really helped in terms of being able to make it a little bit more accessible, particularly for the younger guys. So if they've gone and played, actually they like coming to then watch us a little bit later. And I think the women are the very first game of the day, which is straight after minis. So the minis parents and everything, they'll have the little youngies, up until 10 o'clock in the morning. Women's first team next game on. So then they get that kind of similar thing. Yeah. And it's just planning the day so that people can maximise to watch the Premier teams in the club.
Yeah, definitely. We had Reading ladies played against us, or Reading women played against us a little while ago, and Amy Tennant was playing in goal, and we had kids giddy with excitement to see.
Oh, she is such a legend.
Yeah, it really. I mean, when Wimbledon came to us last year, again, it was the same with Anna Toman. People were just desperate to see her because you know who she is, and she's an absolute gun hockey player. And then on top of that, they're nice people. I think that's something we can lean into in the sport, is that it is a very accessible sport. I mean, I remember the first event I volunteered at in 2007. We had Edwin van der Sar came down to watch because he's friends with the Dutch national team. But all the players were proper celebrities. I mean, like Edwin van der Sar's our mate. They were famous. There were people who were like cover stars and pop stars and so on in the team, and they were just as happy to chat to people. And I don't think there's many sports where you can be a genuine celebrity like in Holland and still be that accessible and friendly and happy to do a selfie and have a chat with people and answer questions. It's a very special sport we've got.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that accessibility makes me think of London 2012, because fortunate enough to have tickets for the final, and I remember afterwards, seeing and just chatting to the German guys after they'd won, and getting a photo with them with their medals, and they were just like, they don't know me from Adam, and we were just having a chat and photos, and it was amazing. I'm like, you guys have just won Olympic gold, like you don't need to hang out with this idiot and me and my mate who turned up, but they did, and it was so cool. And I think I hope that hockey doesn't lose that. I think as much as we want hockey to move forward in a lot of ways, I really hope that it doesn't lose that ability to connect down easily.
Yeah, I mean, something you just mentioning the Germans reminded me of it. It's an interesting perspective. Was do you remember Tobias Weissenborn?
Mm-hmm.
He came to Bowden when they hosted the European Cup in 2009, so the club won, and he was there supporting the women's first team from Rot-Weiss Köln. And we were having a few drinks, and I asked him, what is it that makes you guys so much better, your country, like, and one of the things he picked out immediately was, if you ask a British person who are the best players in the world, at the time you'd have said like Tune de Neuer, Moritz Förster, Christopher Zeller. If you ask a German, they would name all 16 players from the German national team. and he said like that they wouldn't lie and sort of go, yeah, no, we're perfect. They could understand there were issues going on with the team. It wasn't always perfect, but at the same time, they would give it absolute support. There'd be never dissenting voices. And obviously, we're very British. And sometimes at Lee Valley, we're good sometimes at getting some noise, but sometimes we're not. I think that's fair to say. And we need to be maybe a bit more prouder. I know Manny did some good work of trying to get people at the stoop and to have like a real noisy section. But yeah, I thought it was a really interesting point of view from Weissenborn about that is a big difference between British fans and German fans, that we're not necessarily automatically positive. That's not our mindset. We can always see there's a problem, whereas they can always see there's a solution there.
And I think that we're talking about the fans. When I was in Belgium, the club finals, like there were 3 stands. There was one which ran the whole length of the field, which was for everyone. Anyone could go and watch. The left-hand side was the team that was playing, and the right-hand side was the other team that was playing. And it was when it was Beerschot v Leopold. So you had purple flares, smoke, everything in one half of the field, and the other half was red. So you had red and purple smoke and everything billowing down, drums. There were even like people were bringing their dogs in like purple shirts.
Yeah.
Like everything. It was the full 9 yards, and it was all tied in really well. And in fact, it was there was some youth stuff in the morning. So all the youth were there from effectively like Futures Cup level.
Yeah.
So they were all there, did a little walkout. It was phenomenal. So well tied together. But that whole, I remember like standing a little bit near the Beerschot fans, and I was like, this is getting a bit rowdy.
Yeah, the hockey over in the Netherlands and in Belgium, the club scene is just another level. They're so passionate. It's always in the club colours, and they're always there sort of 2 or 3 times a week, having a few beers. They're really passionate about their club. They're really proud of their club. And yeah, there's always a crowd. I had the fortune of going to see Bloemendaal against Oranjerode in a host class match. Jesus, just the noise was incredible. There must have been about 4,000 people there, just for a normal club game. And there's no way we could get that in the UK right now. But maybe
for an England match or a GB match as well.
Yeah.
The only time I think the stoop was the first time I really felt like hockey was there to entertain. And I think what we need to get to is having those characters in the game. Like Lily Owsley is an entertainer, and she loves to win, and that's the whole reason why she plays. And I remember I was injured for the Belgium game at home in Pro League last year, or the year before, 2019, and I watched Lily run from the halfway and then score in the corner on reverse, and the whole stadium just erupted, and it felt like this is the same feeling that I had watching at the World Cup. Like, this is what hockey can be, the whole event. And I would love for us to even just develop the club finals, because it's probably unrealistic at the moment to have this for every game, but to develop the club finals, put money into it. To be honest, it is just funding, isn't it, to try and, but then it's also like all of the grassroots stuff, but to make hockey entertaining.
I think from the Belgium side, I watched, a load of like top division games. I was coaching in Division 1. Like in Belgium, the weekly club games are not massive. It's almost like they held out until club finals weekend, and then it is like we're going to 11. But actually, in terms of numbers, watching, very similar from Belgium to England. And I think we also need to remember that like the grass isn't always greener. So I think what Belgium and Holland maybe do really well in the top division doesn't necessarily translate down deeper into the club. And I think what you were saying, Si, earlier, in terms of watching the 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, all of that, it's not the same. Like, it doesn't translate quite as well. Whereas actually, I think over here, there's more engagement in what's happening further down the club. I think the whole club is a bit more important over here than some of the stuff I saw over there. Whereas there, it's like first team, and then everything else kind of kicks down from there.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a fair comment. Yeah, and then on our side, like I'm now, my days of taking hockey vaguely seriously are behind me. But with the younger players, if COVID permitting, we're allowed to watch a match, I'll say to them, if this is a player you should watch, and this is why. So like, one called Lucy Mitchell. Amazing basics. Like, she never takes her stick off the floor. She's running at incredible pace the whole time, and yet, despite the fact that she runs at an insane pace the whole time, she's always in the correct position. So sort of saying to kids, that's why you need to pay attention to what Lucy's doing there. And that's in the second team. So it's not always about the first team. You can find people in the club who stand out at various different levels and what they can add to the game. And it gives the kids a reason to go and watch. And then for the older players, it's just a chance to see their mates play hockey, which is obviously always lovely.
Yeah. I've just got this through the fans of the continent top draw, flares and the flags, home for stuff like this in this country ASAP. Yeah. And but it takes a club and a club set of fans to grab hold of it and do it first. Because I think we're potentially a little British as well. We're not going to do it because nobody else is doing it. And I think it needs that ultra mentality to go out and just get it done. I think even when you look, it's very British. You look at the Surbiton fans and they turn up in their Surbiton Blazers or whatever, and Reading turn up with their Smurfs. So I think there's that. How can we, what is the next level of that? And I think I'm really interested to see which fans go to that next level first. I think you'd probably argue and say Surbiton are the ones that could go and do it first, just because of the sheer volume of people.
Yeah.
And actually, I'd really like to see Beeston go for it. I think they do all the coverage and stuff. I'd love to see yellow flares, black flares on a Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon kicking off. And I think they've probably got the potential to go for it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they seem the most well set up for that, and also the colours naturally it lends itself nicely to it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I guess I wanted, how did you get into your photography? Like, how did that happen? Why photography? And then kind of what's it given you, really?
Sure. So I got into it because of my dad. So he's really big into his photography. He started doing it because he wanted to sort of give back to the sport a bit and give people that ability to have memories and to have souvenirs of the game. And it was very much the same for me. I started at uni, and it's a bit embarrassing looking back at some of the quality of what I produced, but it's a starting point. And then I worked as the sports editor for the student paper at Southampton University. So it became really important to be able to do the basics. I was supported by a guy at the European Championships in 2007. So I was a volunteer, but there was basically nothing for us to do whilst the matches were on. So we were told we could go on the pitch if we wanted to with a camera. So I did. And he would teach me the basics and also how to think about things and anticipate things. Because it's not, obviously, with how technology develops, you could just sit there and leave your finger on the shutter. But that's not how you get the interesting shots. It's thinking about the different things and understanding player mannerisms as well. Because you can, so like there's one I got of Tess, unfortunately slightly out of focus, but she, you did that, didn't you, during a national anthem, I think.
I do the weirdest things.
Yeah, you spotted me, and I knew that that you would possibly look at me, so I kept my camera on you in case you did. And you spotted me and did something funny. And it's sort of like doing that sort of thing, which is I find really interesting. The mannerisms and the little behaviours of players is fascinating. And then in terms of what it's given me back, I guess you see a really good standard of hockey and you learn stuff very fast. So I used to take coaching quite seriously, and I wanted to I got up to supporting at National League level. And I learned a lot by just listening to players. I learned enough Dutch that I could understand what the coaches were saying and what the players were saying, and the communication priorities and sort of what's important that makes those players as good as they actually are. Because there's only so much you can garner watching on TV. And, I think people like Simon Mason do a great job of providing commentary and insight, but nothing beats firsthand listening and seeing it and witnessing it properly. And then on top of that, it's just been nice to get to know people. A big mission for me is that it's not just for players. It's for volunteers, it's for the umpires, it's the officials running the event, it's for fans. So I try to capture that as much as possible in the photography that I do. Like there's a really nice one I got of Lorene Delforge and Hannah Harrison before a match at the Euros, just smiling at each other because they're about to go on the pitch and do what they love. Or Celine Martin Schmatz having a chat with an Irish player whilst they wait for video referral to come through. And then I don't know if you remember, Tess, at the Euros in Antwerp, there was that tunnel, and whenever the water came blasting out, everyone would flood down the tunnel to get off the pitch. And one of the volunteers just had to stay there because it was his job to stay there. So I'm in the dry, and you can see it on the floor, but you can see this huge sort of cloud of mist descending on the volunteer. And it was a perfect sort of picture story explaining that's what life is like as a volunteer. When everyone else is hiding from the rain, you're out there taking it because that's your job, and you're giving it back to the sport.
Oh, he's gone.
Well, it was a bad answer, clearly.
Oh my word, where's he gone? Bizarre. Okay, we'll just continue then.
Gone.
What's your oh, he's back.
No idea what happened then. Completely crashed. Sorry, you were saying, Tess.
So I was going to ask what's some of your highlights of your photographic travels?
Yeah, so I mean, as I said, it started in 2007, and one of my all-time favorites is it's a picture of a lady called Anke Kuhn, who she was playing for Germany. They went into the final, I think, expecting to be obliterated by the Dutch, because that's what happens in hockey. You turn up and you get beaten. That's what happens when you play Holland. But actually, they won. They qualified for Beijing by winning it, and they were ecstatic. And I figured out that the family for the Germans were in a particular area, so I chanced it. Whilst everyone else was chasing players around the pitch and getting little sort of jaunty reaction shots, I stood and patiently waited. And Anke Kuhn leapt over the barrier and grabbed her boyfriend by the head, like round his shoulders, and then kissed him. And I've got this lovely shot of the two of them just doing that, like that moment, that release of joy that they'd won the medal.
You posted that on Valentine's Day, didn't you? You did,
yes. Yeah. And that won Hannah Martin at the World Cup. It was just, I was sat down and I just spotted it, and I was like, oh my goodness, look at the size of that crowd. And just quickly flipped the camera around, because I don't often shoot in that perspective. But, you know,
photo. That is a ridiculous photo. Like you say, that aspect, it's so good.
And to me, it was, I think, you know, we're a 50-50 sport in terms of men and women participating, but unfortunately there is disparity in the coverage. And I thought, you know, this is a perfect illustration. You've got 10,000 people watching this woman stood in the middle of the pitch, waiting to entertain, waiting to deliver, waiting to win. And I loved it. So that's a really special one to me. She made me promise I wasn't going to mention it, but Tess scoring at Lee Valley, to see her from being a little kid to scoring in front of all those people, that was a really special one for me. The volunteer I mentioned earlier, but yeah, there's so many. I mean, with Cambridge City as well, it's the people that I know and I love, and I'm so proud of the people, and it's lovely to sort of capture moments and capture stories. There's one really funny one of a guy called Antoine having an absolute Barney with an umpire, and talking himself from having a free hit to getting himself given a 10-minute yellow, which obviously I don't condone his behaviour, but as a photograph, it was great. So yeah, it's things like that I really enjoy, and going to the Oxbridge varsity matches and the noise and the crowd. We're talking about not getting enough people. Those events have phenomenal crowds. So yeah, those are just. There's one of my friend Kat Roberts at uni when we went on tour, leapfrogging a guy called Pingu whilst we were playing leapfrog, and just you can see in her face, it's her in a photograph. It's her incredible spirit and her positivity, and the fact that she was such a sort of incredible athlete, just leaping over this giant man in a goalkeeper outfit. Yeah, so those are some of my favourites. So I could talk about that.
You've captured some such great photos of our warm-ups, because they have like little random parts. So we have a figure of 8 right at the end where we try and catch people. And you captured when I was trying to chase Giselle, or she was trying to chase me, and then she caught me. And my face when I get caught is like, oh my word! But you've caught it all. It's hilarious.
Yeah, the GB warm-up I think is the best one to photograph. You get
better than the game, clearly.
you get such wonderful moments. Like there's one of Esme, just like she's just done a run and she's looking sort of into the distance, and behind her you've got the strength and conditioning coach just bellowing at her, and it's just out of focus, but you can see it, and it kind of looks like the story is Esme going, "Oh, shut up." And
probably.
And yeah, like I think the warm-up you guys do is definitely the best one out there. The Dutch is close, but I think the British warm-up's the best one for photographers. There's just so much going on, there's so much energy and giggling and laughter, and it's really interesting as well as a coach to watch that transition from being really relaxed, fun, jovial to when you finish, you're ready to go to war. And that's a really interesting journey to watch up close.
Do love a good warm-up. I love variety in warm-up. I'm not one for sticking with the same thing all the time, and it's got to be, you've got to remember why you're there. And I think a warm-up is a really valuable time to do that. I think it's something that's often really overlooked, but the value you can get out of it is huge, and it can create all those little additional bonds, those little moments of joy. And if you get that right, that then bleeds into the game. And I think it's so important. And I think coaches spend so much time about thinking about the training to prepare. Actually, I think there's so much more that can be done in warm-ups. I think I've tried a few things out, and I think I've barely scratched the surface. I think there's a whole world sitting underneath that, which is for another time. But that's my 10 pence on that.
It's all about Top Gun high fives. You get that
always.
Yeah.
Trying to Tess, have you got any more questions? I've loved this. This has been great, by the way. I've really enjoyed this.
Just on your daughters, do you see them? Do you see your adorable 2 girls becoming hockey stars?
Well, actually, funnily enough, Millie, my eldest, she was a mascot at I think it was a World League match. And she shook or high-fived or whatever it was, all the Malaysian players. And then unfortunately, she suddenly got shy and refused to make eye contact with the Chinese players. But she the next time we went to Lee Valley, she assumed that she would just be allowed straight back on, and that she could get involved, start playing. Yeah, they both started playing at sort of my boyhood club, really, which was at Ely. I was sort of the head coach there was a wonderful man called Trevor Hopkinson, who's sadly not with us anymore. And my dad was another big coach there who sort of really did good stuff on the technical side. And yeah, they both started playing there and they're absolutely loving it. I mean, Mari's 4, Millie's 8, and yeah, they love it. They love just seeing the people, which is exactly why I enjoy doing it. And yeah, she's really enjoying it. She's watched plenty of international hockey and a bit of international women's rugby as well, and she's really determined to just have fun and do what she wants to do. So I'm very proud of her.
Do you think there's anything that the professional female athletes, like the hockey players, can do more to encourage your daughters and young girls?
Actually, I think they're doing a lot of stuff really well, and one of the things that already is going so well is that a lot of women athletes talk very openly about the problems they've encountered, and that's really important. Like Maddie Hinch is one of them, and it can be anything that she's talked about, ranging from dealing with having freckles to being short or being when choices that you make as a woman or a girl to do sport, and what those choices are. So not everyone sees them as sacrifices. Some people see them as choices. And they sort of talk about some of the problems they've encountered. So like Ava Dakuda talking about exhaustion and how she handled that. Or Helen talking about overcoming injury after injury after injury and still fighting and still being just a ridiculously good hockey player. that for me is what my kids need to see, is real people talking about real problems and showing that you can go and do it and that nothing can stop you. And when she comes to watch Cambridge City, she often asks, and she has no interest in seeing the men. We went to watch them against Birmingham Uni, and she said they all behave like footballers. They were arguing too much. But yeah, she was watching Maddie Axford and Lisa running down the wings, and she was jumping with excitement, like to the point I had to ask her to calm down because I thought the umpires were going to kick us off. Yeah, she absolutely loves it. She really gets into it. So I think it's just visibility and an accessibility. Sorry, it's a long answer.
What a way to end, I think.
Mic drop. Yeah, and we're out. Simon, thank you so much for your time. I've thoroughly enjoyed this evening, and I think there's some really nice little bits for people to take away. I think from a number of different aspects. I think just passion of the sport, caring about your club, as well as, you know, ideas for how we can grow the sport. So loads of amazing content. So thank you so much for this evening, and yeah, cannot wait to see your next batch of photos for sure. If anybody doesn't already, definitely go and follow Cambridge City on Instagram to see Simon's work, and yeah, really look forward to catching up with you soon, and yeah, hopefully having a beer at some point. That'd be fantastic. Tess, thank you as always, legend. Fingers crossed we'll get our third leg back in Mr. Andrew Gibson.
I forgot about him again.
We love you, Gibbo. But no, thank you all very much, and I will see you all very soon.
Thanks.
Bye.